Hey, what's going on, everyone? Man, it's been a while since I've done a podcast episode, but so many takeaways and so many things to share with you all. I met with my friend, one of my mentors, William Lee, the other day, and he asked me like a lot of good questions, like, "Hey, man, if you were to create a course, what would you create it on?" So this is a good opportunity to just share what's on my mind, and then I'll create a course around it eventually. But this will help get my thoughts out. So today I want to talk to you about from poverty to six figures, like how to be able to do that. So for context, I grew up in poverty, like living off of government assistance, and I would say there's obviously a lot of ways to do it, and I'll share with you like how I was able to do it. Um, So these are the top 10 things I would recommend how to get out of poverty into making at least six figures a year. Okay. So number one is to be obsessed with learning, like really learning from people. And, um, that could be through podcasts, it could be through YouTube. I must watch at least 5 YouTube videos a day just on like how to get better, motivational things, just tips that you could learn how to make more money. So, continue to listen to content like this and you'll improve. So, I would say starting your own podcast really helps. Like it gave me an excuse to interview like really amazing people. So I would recommend that if you don't have a podcast, it's an easy way to connect with like really successful people. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're financially wealthy, although that could be one component of it. But if you see someone who just looks really happy all the time, ask them questions like, "Hey, like what are you up to? Why are you so happy all the time?" And so how I started my podcast, and now I've done over 300 episodes, is and this is through a couple different podcasts, so not just one, but a combination of like all the podcast episodes I've ever done. When I was at Cheetah Digital, I would talk to my mentor, who this is when I was enterprise sales represent, which was an enterprise SDR, which is person who's like booking a lot of the meetings for the senior sales reps to close like multi-million dollar deals. And I would ask him a lot of questions. I was like, huh, if I recorded this would be so valuable for so many younger people. They would be able to gain so many insights from this. So that's why I created the David Tang Han podcast the and my reflection podcast, which is what you're listening to right now. And I'll post a link to it as well, so you could subscribe. Number two, like honestly, there is no substitution for putting in the elbow grease, right? I mean, unless you're born into wealth, right? But even with that, like to maintain it, like you still have to like work hard and still have to go to school, and the added pressure that comes with having wealthy parents. That's a whole nother story. But really, you know, like what I learned about hard work and I do think it's possible to work smarter, not just harder, but working, because when I was younger, I was working harder, but that doesn't I was working really hard, working, sometimes 4 or 5 jobs in a week, right? And you at least 2 or 3 jobs a week. And I was not making six figures. Granted, this was when I was in college or when I just graduated from college. So a little bit different. But for context, just so you know that I'm not born into wealth or anything like that. My mom does nails for a living, and my dad is a bartender for Benihana. And my parents have been divorced for a while, but we grew up living off of government assistance and food stamps, etc. And what I learned about hard work is you have to work smarter, but there is no substitute for just like really putting in the effort, right? Similar to going to the gym, similar to running a marathon or anything like that. Like you're gonna want to track like which metrics have been the most successful. So let's say you're a sales rep like I am. if you notice like, oh, okay, these meetings aren't really yielding as many opportunities, okay, take on Friday, like take an inventory, like which activities did lead to the best. Sometimes it is the cold calling, or sometimes it's leveraging different relationships. Sometimes it's attending this particular conference, right? So just being cognizant about that. Number three, taking care of your health. And the reason why I mentioned this and is just, when you're in a good place physically, you have more confidence in yourself and you don't really have to worry about how you look, or you're not self-conscious, and you're just able to produce a lot more because hey, like I'm really putting myself first, and I'm good at what I do, right? And that takes you really making conscious decisions like, oh, am I going to take a walk with my free time, or am I just going to watch TV? Watching TV every once in a while is fine, but if it's affecting your livelihood, then I would say, be careful about that. Um, Number four, finding your why. And this actually might be the hardest out of all of it. And what I learned about finding my why is you have to try a lot of different things. Like I've had 30 jobs in my lifetime, waiting tables, selling door-to-door Verizon, literally working for like tried recruiting, headhunting, um, working for a cybersecurity company that sells to hedge funds, to working at LinkedIn, TriNet, Cheetah Digital, Coach Hub, etc. Now at Fortune. And you only will find your why if you've experimented and really put yourself out there and you tried literally everything, right? Like I knew the hard way because I would go from job to job, be like, oh, okay, don't like data entry. Oh, I can't be sitting at my desk all the time. Need a job where I'm out and about talking to people, meeting people, and you'll find your why. I would say for me personally, it's anything that revolves around like self-development, personal development. That's why I love it at Fortune. I get to help people improve their leadership skills, communication skills. And when it doesn't feel like work, you know that you're in a good spot. And of course, you're going to have bad days, right? Like that's everyone. But, Mondays aren't so bad. And you actually look forward to working, right? Whereas many people, Sunday, they're like, oh God, I have work tomorrow. So just be self-aware with what makes you happy and what doesn't. Number five, networking. I cannot emphasize this enough. Networking, I would say, has been probably the most crucial out of all 10 of these points because it's led to just so many opportunities, and you just have a lot more perspective, and you just never know, right? I mean, there's people that, yeah, this week, my friend who I met at a Brooklyn co-working space, Lionel, introduced me to this guy, David, who's just such a cool dude. And, never say no to networking events. Like, even if you hated it, even if it was like painful, like now, okay, like I don't like going to those types of networking events. Like for me, when I've been to a few real estate investing events, I was like, okay, like this is not my not my jam. But I only know that because I put myself out there and I continuously do that. And I'll create a video on each of these in more detail because each of these points warrants its own more detailed explanation on how to tap into a lot of these things. Number six, self-awareness. Oh man, I'll never forget one of my mentors, Tommy. He's a very successful real estate investor. And he said, you have really good interpersonal skills, but I think sometimes you lack the self-awareness, like yourself. And I was like, man, like, what does that even mean? Looking back at that moment, he's right. I focus so much of my energy on other people that I never even taken time to like explore myself internally, like what makes me tick, what do I care about. I was just going through the motions, like just going through life. And programs like Landmark Worldwide, accomplishment coaching, next level, they all help. And I'll do a video on that as well, right? Because a lot of people have asked me about that. Number seven, interpersonal skills. This is probably I think self-awareness and interpersonal skills are tied for the second most important out of these 10. So number two and three. And that's because we interact with humans. We're, as a species, we are surrounded by people, right? So if you aren't good at like understanding and mirroring and you can practice by just going putting yourself out there, like you'll be pleasantly surprised at like how quickly you can really read people and understand people the more you put yourself out there. So in the beginning, it's uncomfortable. I know, I've been to over 300 networking events in my life, and I put together a ton of networking events. But I would recommend for you to go to at least a networking event like a month if this is new to you. If you're more intermediate, once every 2 weeks. I mean, if you have the bandwidth and career is one of your priorities, one of your biggest priorities, then I would go once a week, right? Because you never know who you're going to meet, and just the knowledge of leveraging a pool of knowledge rather than just figuring out on your own, it really helps. It really makes a difference. Number 8, time management. So this one, I would say, it is probably the most important in terms of getting you to that next level, like 200K, right, and above. Getting to 100K, obviously with inflation now, that's not even that much money, but time management will really help you focus on the things that matter to you. And some of this is practicing just saying no. Like, how can I, if someone's asking me to do something, like, oh, okay, stop. Is this ultimately helping me where I want to go? Am I just doing it because I'm being a people pleaser and I don't want to like be rejected, right? Be cognizant of that. Number 9, looking for jobs that pay 6 figures. So obviously, this is important because, let's say you're an Uber driver or you're delivering DoorDash, like most likely you're probably not going to work 6 figures, make 6 figures without like really killing yourself. You know what I mean? Like, so what I did, I've been fortunate enough to get into tech sales, and I'll create a whole video on how to get into tech sales. But really, what's important is just look up online I mean, nowadays with Glassdoor and Indeed and salary.com, you can literally just Google jobs that pay over 6 figures and figure out, talk to as many people that are in those positions and just learn from them. How do I just reach out to them and be like, hey, I would love to be in your shoes one day. Like, would you be willing to share 10, 15 minutes of your time? And, usually they'll take longer than that, but you just want to make sure you ask for 15, not to burden them, not so they don't feel like pressured, right? Obviously, if you're reaching out to CEOs and stuff like that, like they're going to be busy. So you probably have to do a lot more research and just get really personal in terms of just making sure that like you really did your research before reaching out to people. And number 10, adding value to the marketplace. So what does that mean? Well, obviously it's good to find something that you're passionate about, but really, like, there's certain jobs that the market needs, right? Like DoorDash, I just did DoorDash yesterday just to make some extra income and because I love driving my Tesla. But like, being a DoorDash delivery person, like I'm probably not gonna make 6 figures because the barrier to entry is really low. Like I literally just signed up and was able to like start tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I could have started this that same day that I signed up. So it doesn't require as many skills, like doesn't require as much education. It's not as specialized. But if you find like a need in the marketplace, right? So you think to yourself, okay, what issue or what is something that is causing a lot of friction in society? And then think to, okay, how can I resolve that? Right. During COVID, when there was a shortage of nurses, that was probably a good time to get into nursing. In technology sales, like, people who are willing to cold call, people who are willing to open up doors and get meetings and close deals to help the company make revenue. You're adding value to the company. So making revenue, you're always going to be a valuable asset because adding revenue is always going to be something that every organization needs, right? So I hope these tips were helpful for you. Stay tuned for a course. Looking forward to sharing with you guys, and cheers.